You've been noticing in California, where you've been licensed since 1974, this is creeping in and in a really weird, pervasive, problematic way. Tell us.
Okay, this whole thing, there is no question that minorities have been wronged in the past. Certainly slavery is heinous, dreadful, awful. That's done. We know it. But we're now talking about having people go through what I equate to struggle sessions like the Maoists in China did, where in front of your friends and coworkers, you have to confess that you're a racist. And even though you haven't done anything, that it's implicit in just being a white person or a underrepresented minority, because mind you, Asians are minorities, but they're not underrepresented minorities. So they even had to come up with a new term for Blacks, Hispanics, and Indigenous people. Those are the BIPOCs. And it's absurd. When I'm saying it, I feel like I sound stupid even saying these words. Who is a BIPOC? Right. And this is what they're calling little children and grown-ups who are of other races that are minoritized. So we're not even minorities anymore. We're minoritized, meaning we're powerless. Well, all of this is such bunk and the wrong thing to be teaching young people as well as adults. And certainly all this has to start when we're young. That's another story. But going to medicine, it is damaging to the students who really wonder, have I been accepted to medical school because I'm bright, because I'm smart, because they like what I have to offer? Or am I being accepted because they need another colored person who they can add to their statistics? And sadly, that's how a lot of these young folks think. And when affirmative action first came out, this is one of the first things a lot of folks wondered. Am I smart? How do people really look at me? Are they going to think that I'm the dumb doctor? Will I get as many patients as the white doctor? And on and on. So that's one aspect. There's a very damaging psychological aspect. There's a damaging aspect to the collegiality among doctors of color and white doctors. People have been consulting back and forth for years with nary a thought of what race the doctor was. It's like, did you have the expertise that I don't have? And I'm going to ask you a question, and vice versa. Patients have been requesting doctors of all races and colors because they heard that person was good, so they go to that doctor. And now suddenly they're talking about Black patients need to have a Black doctor. Could you imagine if the tables were turned and everybody said white patients needed to have a white doctor? It's the most absurd thing I've ever heard of, not to mention you could never do it. There wouldn't be enough Black doctors to treat all the Black patients. And everybody I know, and admittedly, I worked in a hospital in West Hollywood and a nice part of town, but the Black doctors I knew wanted to work at nice hospitals. It's just not assumed because you're Black that you want to go work in an underprivileged hospital. Yes, some do, but there's plenty of white doctors that work there too. So some of the concepts that all of this is built on are just plain wrong, and it's divisive. It's not good for patients. Patients aren't thinking along those lines. I'm sure every now and then there's going to be some butthead who is a butthead no matter what, who says something that has a racist undertone or whatever. That's always going to happen. I don't care whether you're in medicine or anything else. And there's always going to be those people. There's always going to be sexist people and drunks who come in and say they don't want some C word taking care of them and all that. And you say, screw you. I'm a good doctor. This is who you get. And somehow they shut up right quick. Mm-hmm. So it angers me because I grew up when there wasn't fair housing in California. And even though my father had a good occupation and we could afford it. We couldn't live where we wanted to live. And so I see how things had improved. And then suddenly it was like falling off a cliff when they started all this focus on race. And it took Black people away from moving ahead on our own power. We didn't need the caring white liberal to get us ahead. We had our own power. And this is becoming a problem because it's sapping Black doctors of their ego and of their sense of pride in themselves. And how can somebody who's a successful cardiac surgeon suddenly be an oppressed victim? Well, they aren't. And it's all a narrative designed to move our society in a different direction.
And now, how does it change the dynamic between white doctors and Black doctors in the hospital or other settings, right? Because now it's like you're wondering, as the white person, I'm thinking like, does she see me as the oppressor? Does she think I'm a racist? Because California is telling her in these continuing legal education courses every year that I've got some implicit bias that's in there. I'm out to get her. I just think it creates this underlying dynamic of distrust.
Well, and it does, and it shouldn't. The thing is that the only thing that makes me hopeful about the whole thing is that most people are kind of normal and they know this is bullshit. They've had friends for years and interacted with folks for years and know who's good and who has the personality and who's the gynecologist to the stars, who happens to be a Black guy. And they didn't pick him because he was Black. They picked him because he had a great personality and was a good surgeon. All this sort of stuff. This is how real people are. And it's a veneer. It's something. And your last guest was talking about this transgender stuff being a performance. And that's what a lot of this racial stuff is. People are out there playing games, but they're playing games with people's lives. But for the most part, yes, it is going to breed distrust. And it's going to be the younger folk who don't know any better. The older guys, I'd say anybody late 40s plus, they know the score. They know that a good doctor can come in any skin color and they're not going to judge people by their color, and they haven't before.
Experts say that China is hoarding a massive amount of food, that they will soon have over 2/3 of the globe's corn reserves, over half of its rice, and half of its wheat. But when asked about it, China misleads. One China expert says they, of course, would never admit to something like that. Well, what does China know that we do not? Why are they doing this? When it comes to global food shortages, China is, they say, the canary in the coal mine. You see, China is the world's #1 food importer. They rely on the rest of the world to keep their people fed, so they can't afford to mess this up or there will be riots, civil panic, or worse. That's why it's a smart idea to stock up on a kit of the best-selling 4 Patriots survival food. Create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4 Patriots survival food kits. Hand-packed in the USA, the kits are compact and stack easily. They have different delicious breakfasts, lunches, and dinners, and their 5-star reviews on the website rave about the flavor and the taste. Right now, you can get 10% off your first purchase of 4, the numeral 4 Patriots survival food by typing in the code MK at checkout. Just go to the numeral 4 Patriots.com, okay, 4patriots.com, and use code MK to get 10% off your first purchase of 4 Patriots survival food. 4patriots.com. Use that code MK. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.